because I'm going to talk about microaggressions, and then I thought, does everybody know what I'm talking about? Culture is so nuanced, personal, complex, that no one word describes us. So I'm going to talk about reflective practice and microaggressions in our system. I thought really hard about what I wanted to share with you, because I expected a very advanced crowd to come here, right? That's you guys, yeah? Like, you're doing this work, you're holding trauma for a living, you got this, you walk in trauma all the time. And I wanted to think from a reflective practice lens a little bit about microaggressions, subtle, implicit, unconscious insults that we all are bombarded with. And then kind of think a little bit about how our consumer community is bombarded by these ideas. So get ready, because it's about to get personal. And I start here in that this is the way I think and talk about the brain, and this is straight out of intentional living. And now the people who couldn't get it are annoyed, I'm sorry. But I like to sort of, as I said, describe the brain in English. And I know you guys are smart and you can speak neurobiology, but not everybody connects with, midbrain, amygdala, prefrontal cortex, and brainstem. So I just talk about thinking brain, and emotional overload. And so if we start the way your brain develops from the bottom up, right? We know that, and inside out. And the base of your brain is your brainstem, or what I call emotional overload. That's the reactive part of your brain. That's survival mode. When you're completely upregulated and you don't have access to your thinking brain or your cortex, you're in survival mode. That's reactive, right? And as we move forward, your emotional brain is where relationships live, and your thinking brain is your prefrontal cortex, where organized narrative, declarative thought is. So in terms of emotional brain and thinking brain, I try to describe these as emotional brains where you do your work, your clinical work, but thinking brains where you write your notes. So you do the work here, like from your heart, but you write about the work from your head. And mental flexibility right here, for me, the sweet spot is balancing the two. We don't want you over-intellectualizing, only living in your cortex. Yes, well, my theoretical perspective on this would be that A, B, C, D, and therefore. No, you gotta use your heart. You gotta bring your heart to the work too. So we want you to bring your heart and your head into the work. And so my hope in our time together is that we're in this place where you can maintain mental flexibility, where you're using your feelings to inform your thinking, and you're using your thinking to reflect on your feelings, because your brain really works when you have access to both parts of your brain. But what I want to orient you to are some of the values that I stand on when I'm doing reflective supervision or reflective practice work. And the first is that we have to have safety in the relationship. If people don't feel safe, they're not pouring into development, they're not using their full brain. I think many of the speakers have already talked about this. They're spending a lot of time staying safe. They're in a lower brain system, so they're not really available for relationship, and they're not available for emotional healing. So first, people have to be safe in a relationship with you. Two, we need respect. We need to feel respected, that our truth will be validated and heard if we're going to go into these dark places and we're going to have these reflective process experiences personally. I'm talking about you guys right now, first of all. And then we want to make sure there's collaboration. And I like to think about collaboration as providing shared power. So I'm often a reflective practice supervisor, although I still participate in reflective practice. And I encourage you, if you're holding trauma, make sure you get reflective practice supervision. It is an amazing way to stay whole in the work, and there's an emerging set of evidence supporting that. So there's always a power differential, when your supervisor is also your manager and this kind of stuff. So the question becomes, how do we create an opportunity for shared power, meaning coming together, meaning, I have content, but you have content too. And your content is valuable, just like my content is valuable. And we can approach parents in the same way, saying, yes, I have some letters after my name. However, you've held this child in your body and in your family system since conception. So you have information that I don't have. So it's honoring the information of the other person, even if you don't agree with it. Because the point is that it's their truth, right? Does that make sense? If you have a felt experience that the bus passed you by in your neighborhood because your child was in a wheelchair and you think it was a microaggression, I don't have to argue with you about that. That's your truth, right? So when we're listening and being compassionate with folks' stories, please don't correct their story. I know you guys wouldn't do that. That's that's other people might do that. But so we want to make sure people feel safe with us. We want to show respect for their story. We want to offer collaboration by demonstrating shared power, even though you will already be inherently more powerful in the relationship often because of your professional lens, because you have letters after your name. Yes? Am I making sense? So a great way to create shared power is starting by letting people know that they have some power. Because a lot of our families don't think they have any power. So where do we let them know that they do? And then honestly, where do we support that? Where do we prove to them that you do have power? Because I'm going to let you have the power of choice, okay? In situations where we can, because I know there's sometimes non-negotiables, right? But there's also ways you approach those non-negotiables, and that's where choice comes in. Yes? Okay. Giving voice to issues of culture and diversity, a lot of presenters have talked about this. We have to unpack issues of historical trauma. We have to name the microaggressions of everyone. So I'm thinking of holding trauma as walking together in the darkness, right? And remember, I'm holding microaggressions as trauma. That's sort of my frame, that over time microaggressions become trauma. So we're helping people unpack these microaggressions, but yes, these microaggressions are gonna come at us. Part of it is, again, speaking the unspeakable, making it real and having people say, you know, it is not fair, and it is a terrible thing, and I wish I could change it. But while I can't change it, I want you to know I'm gonna walk with you through it. So that's what this is. I'm thinking about this, image of a dark place or being in the dark, right? So I mentioned safety as our first goal. So if we think about safety as our first goal, I kind of think about who's going to hold your hand, figuratively. But as you're in these dark places, as our consumers are in these dark places, the first thing we want to do is provide safety for them, right? Physical safety first, and then emotional safety, all right? And then when we're in the truth, we're going to acknowledge the light on the truth of the inequity. We're going to say it is true that this bad thing happened. It is true that while many of us deal with assault, sexual assault, and this kind of thing, and it's not pleasant, and it's true that while you asked for help from adults they didn't hear, because that's a story sometimes we get, right? You tried to tell people, and it's true that people didn't acknowledge. That's true, so we're going to shine a light on the truth. We're going to show acceptance of the fear. We're going to name the reality of justice. We're going to say, you're not irrational to be afraid of strangers given what happened to you. That's not crazy behavior. That's a protective factor. And you have a reason for that behavior. So we're going to speak the truth over the story, and we're going to accept that the fear is real. And then by offering someone a path out of the darkness, I'm thinking about hope. Now again, hope is an idea. It's not a place. And it's not something I can give you. It's something you have to aspire towards, if I'm making sense. What do you hope for your children? What are you expecting on the other end of this journey? Because if we don't have hope on the other end of the journey, why are we going to walk through it? Right? Those of you who are hoping to pass your licensing exam. You will! I touched some of you with that. No. But the journey of getting to that place for folks, I speak mental health, so I've talked to many folks who are in that place of studying and taking that test, but you have hope that you're going to get on the other side, right? And you do, and that's a soft example, but there are folks that we're working with that are carrying very, very difficult things, very difficult things. And the thing that folks cannot take from you is your self-determination unless you let them, right? People can't take your self-determination, you got to give it up. So if I'm determined and I am hopeful and you close the door, I'm going to go that door. And you close that door, I'm going to go to that door. And you close that door, I'm going to go to that door, and they just might open. But you will not stop my self-determination to finding a door that someone will open. Okay? And then over time, hoping I can find my own light. And that is recovery and resilience and systems change. So does this metaphor make sense? Yeah? And perhaps all we can do is be the hand. We may be the point of the system that all we can do is be the hand that holds somebody in the darkness. And that's a beginning. That's a beginning, right? Because until I feel safe and empowered, I may not be able to activate, right? So the beginning is safety, validation, mirroring. I feel safe in this relationship. You will take care of me. We will get through this together. I want to talk a little bit about co-regulation. So what I want to think about is who's holding your experience, who's supporting you as you're holding the trauma of others. Do you have that person on a regular basis? That's called reflective practice supervision, right? We are charged with, and I would argue gifted with, the opportunity to walk with folks in dark places. And while we're doing that, and we are giving our thinking brain and our emotional brain to facilitate the repair of someone else, we've got to do a piece of healing as well. And that's not because we're not really good professionals, it's because we're people. The human condition is that we feel other people's feelings. Those are the mirror neurons, the science behind that, right? So when someone else is in pain, you feel the pain that they feel. So if we're walking with others through their trauma experience, we're catching a little bit of it. That's going to get in our bones. And so what are we going to do about that? We're going to find a bigger, stronger, wiser, co-regulating other to help us hold that. Who is your other? Do you know who it is? Can you name that person? Now who's the second one? And who's the third one? I want you to have 3. If you don't have 3, go out and find 3. Really, really, you guys, because my purpose here today is to help, I want you to survive the work. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that this is too important. It's extremely emotionally taxing. And I want you to have the strategies and the skills to take good care of yourself so you can keep doing this. That's me, yay! I'm trying to change the world one relationship at a time, you guys know that. I just released my YouTube channel this summer, so go visit me there. I have an Instagram page, yay! Some of you I recognize from Facebook already. So I hope to see you on social media.